You need to understand something about the school garden. You have walked past it every single day for 3 years, every morning on the way to first period, every afternoon on the way out, sometimes at lunch when the weather is good and the path through the garden is faster than going around the main building. 3 years. Hundreds of times. You have never once actually looked at it. Today you look, not for any dramatic reason. Your phone dies between second and third period, and without it, you have nothing to stare at. So instead, you look at the world around you the way people looked at the world before phones existed, actually fully, with the complete attention of someone with nowhere else to put it. The school garden is old, much older than you realized. The hedges are thick and dense in the way that takes decades. The stone path has depressions worn into it from years of feet. The bench in the center has a date carved into its arm, 1974, before your parents were in high school. And in the far corner, almost completely covered by ivy that has been growing over it for what looks like years, a small gray stone. You walk toward it, not because something tells you to, just because it is there and you are looking today and looking leads you there. You push the ivy aside with your hand. You read the stone, your name, your exact date of birth, month, day, year. And beneath that, separated by a dash that is the most terrifying punctuation mark you have ever seen in your life, a date, 6 weeks from today. You stand in the school garden in the middle of an ordinary Thursday, and you look at the date carved into a stone that has been here longer than you have been alive. And the stone says you have 6 weeks left. You find Zoe at her locker between third and fourth period. She looks up when she hears you coming. She reads your face in approximately 1 second and closes her locker and says, "What happened?" Not a question. A statement delivered with the urgency of someone who already knows the answer is serious. You say, "I need to show you something." Outside, in the garden. She takes your hand without being asked. This is one of the things you love most about Zoe. She moves toward the thing rather than away from it. She does not ask questions that slow you down. She just holds your hand and walks with you. In the garden, you push the ivy aside again. You stand back. You let her read it. Zoe reads the stone twice. Then she straightens up. She looks at you. Her face does something complicated and controlled. She is processing and deciding simultaneously, which is also very Zoe. She puts both arms around you and holds you, properly holds you, her face against your neck, both arms tight, the full weight of someone who loves you and is frightened and is choosing to be close rather than distant inside the frightening. You hold her back, your chin on top of her head, the garden quiet around you both. She says, against your shoulder, muffled but clear, "This is a stone in a garden. It is not a fact. It is a stone. You say it has my name on it. My birthday." She pulls back. She looks at your face. She says, "I know, and we are going to find out why. Together. Right now. Starting with Mr. Aldridge." She takes your hand again. She kisses you once. Quick, firm. The kiss of someone saying, "I am not going anywhere." And she pulls you toward the groundskeeper's shed at the edge of the garden. You go. Because Zoe moving towards something has always been easier than standing still in it alone. Mr. Aldrich has maintained the school garden for 31 years. He knows every inch of it the way you know your own bedroom. Not because he has memorized it, but because he has lived inside it long enough that the knowledge is in his hands and feet as much as his mind. He listens to you with his arms crossed and his head slightly tilted. When you finish, he does not say anything immediately. He sets down the tool he is holding. He says, "Show me." He walks with you to the corner. He pushes the ivy aside himself, more of it than you moved, clearing the whole stone. He crouches down. He reads it. He goes very still. You say, "Do you know about this stone?" He says without standing up, still looking at the stone, "I have maintained this garden for 31 years. I know every stone in it, every feature, every corner." He pauses. He says, "This stone was not here yesterday. The garden is very quiet. Somewhere a class bell rings inside the building, muffled and distant." You say, "That is not possible. Look at the ivy. The ivy has been growing over it for—" Mr. Aldridge says, "I know what the ivy looks like. I trimmed this corner 3 days ago. There was nothing here. This stone appeared, and whatever put it here also made it look like it has always been here. The ivy does not lie. The ivy grew overnight. Zoe's hand tightens on yours. Mr. Aldridge finally stands. He is a tall man, and he looks taller right now, the specific height of someone who has just understood something and does not like what they understand. He says, "You need to go to Dr. Wells immediately, and you need to take photographs of this stone before you go. Every angle. Do it now." You say, "Why photographs?" He looks at you. He says, "Because in my experience, and I have one relevant experience that I have never spoken about to anyone at this school, things like this do not always stay where you find them. You photograph the stone from 6 angles. Then you go to Dr. Wells. Dr. Wells comes to the garden with you. She reads the stone with the careful attention of someone who is trying to determine whether this is a prank, a coincidence, or something she does not have a category for. She photographs it on her own phone. She makes a call. You do not hear to whom. Then she says, "I want you both to wait in my office. I need to check something in the school archives. Do not talk to other students about this yet." You wait in her office for 22 minutes. Zoe holds your hand the entire time. She traces small circles on the back of your hand with her thumb, a habit she has when she is thinking, when she is trying to stay calm, when she is being steady for both of you. You focus on the circles, the specific rhythm of them. Zoe being Zoe right next to you. Dr. Wells returns. She sits down. She places a folder on the desk. She looks at you for a moment before she speaks. She says, "I want to be transparent with you about what I found because I think you deserve that." The school archives go back to 1921 when this building was established. In 1987, 37 years ago, there was a student at this school with your exact name. The office is very quiet. You say that is a coincidence. Dr. Wells says the student was born on your exact birthday, different year, 1970, but the same month and day. Zoe says, "What happened to them?" Dr. Wells looks at the folder. She says, "He died in October 1987. The records do not specify the cause. He was 17 years old, the same age as you." You say the date on the stone, the date 6 weeks from today. Dr. Wells opens the folder and turns it to face you, a photocopy of an old school record. A date circled in the margin in someone's handwriting, old ink, faded. The date circled is the date on the stone. You say that is the same date. Dr. Wells says, "Yes." The three of you sit with that for a moment. Then Dr. Wells says, and you can hear that she is choosing her words very carefully, "I do not know what the stone is or how it got there. I do not know what it means that these details match. What I know is that you are a student in my care, and I am not going to pretend this is nothing. I'm going to find out everything I can. And until I do, I need you to be careful." You say, "Careful how?" She says, "I do not know yet, but careful." 5 weeks pass. Nothing happens. And nothing happening is its own kind of horror because the date is still there on the stone. Mr. Aldridge confirmed it every week. The stone remained, the date remained, and the nothing happening does not mean nothing is going to happen. It means you are waiting every day for something you cannot prepare for because you do not know what form it takes. Zoe does not leave your side for those 5 weeks in any meaningful sense. She walks to school with you. She sits with you at lunch. She texts you at 11 p.m. every night. Still here. You text back, still here. This becomes the exchange, still here, that structures every day of the 5 weeks. The night before the date, she sits on your bedroom floor with her back against your bed and her legs stretched out and a book open in her lap that she has not read a single page of. You sit beside her, your shoulder against hers, the lamp on, the window dark. She closes the book. She turns to look at you. She says, "I need to tell you something." You say, "Tell me." She says, "I am not frightened of tomorrow because of the stone. I am frightened of tomorrow because I love you, and the idea of anything happening to you is the most frightening thing I have ever considered. The stone is just a stone. What I feel about you is real." And I needed to say that tonight specifically so you know it is true regardless of what tomorrow is or is not. You look at her, Zoe who held your hand in the garden, Zoe who said this is a stone, not a fact. Zoe whose thumb tracing circles on your hand was the steadiest thing in the principal's office. Zoe who has texted still here every night for 5 weeks. You put your arm around her. She leans into you. You hold each other against the bed with the lamp on and the window dark, and the night being whatever the night is. You kiss her temple. You say, I know it's real. It's the realest thing in all of this. She says, whatever happens tomorrow, and I genuinely believe nothing is going to happen, I need you to know that these 5 weeks with you have been the most present I have ever felt in my life because you were paying attention, really paying attention to everything. You say, I stopped looking at my phone. She laughs. Surprised and genuine, the laugh that starts in her eyes and the sound of it in your bedroom on the night before the date is the best sound you have heard in 5 weeks. You stay there together until 2 a.m. Then she falls asleep against your shoulder. You stay awake. You watch the dark window. You wait for the date to arrive. The date arrives on a Friday morning. You wake up. You are alive. Zoe is asleep against your shoulder, and the lamp is still on, and outside the window, the ordinary Friday morning is doing what ordinary Friday mornings do. Quietly, without drama, completely indifferent to the significance you have assigned to it. You wake Zoe gently. She opens her eyes. She looks at you. She says, You're here. You say, I'm here. She hugs you so hard it briefly compresses your ability to breathe, and you let her because it is the best feeling in the world. You go to school together. You walk through the garden on the way in, both of you going to the corner without discussing it. The stone is still there, but it is different. The date, the second date, the one 6 weeks away that is now today, is gone, not chipped away, not covered, simply gone, as if it was never carved. The stone reads only your name and your birthday, and the dash, just the dash. No end date. Mr. Aldridge is already there. He is crouching by the stone when you arrive. He looks up. He sees your face. He says it changed. You say, the date is gone. He nods slowly. He stands. He says, in the experience I mentioned, the one I had never spoken about, something similar happened to a student here in 1993. A stone appeared with her name and a date 3 weeks away. She found it. She was terrified. She told people. People paid attention. And on the date, nothing happened. And the stone changed. The end date disappeared. You say, what does that mean? Mr. Aldridge looks at the stone. He says, I have thought about this for 30 years, and the only answer I have come to is this. The stone is not a prediction. It is a possibility, a version of the future that exists when nobody is paying attention. When people move through their days on autopilot, phones in hand, eyes down, walking past gardens they have walked past 1,000 times without ever truly looking. He looks at you. He says, you started paying attention. You looked, really looked. And the people around you, your girlfriend, Dr. Wells, me, we all paid attention alongside you. And when people pay attention to a life, when they look at it closely and love it specifically and show up for it completely, the possibility of losing it quietly, unnoticed, in the corner of an ordinary day, that possibility closes. The garden is very quiet. Somewhere inside the building, the first bell rings. Zoe takes your hand. She looks at the stone. She says, so it was never about death. Mr. Aldridge says, I do not think it was ever about death. I think it was about attention. You are 17 years old. You walk through a school garden every day. You have walked through it hundreds of times. Last Thursday, you looked at it for the first time. And what you found underneath the ivy, in the corner you had never truly seen, was your own name. Not a threat, a question. Are you paying attention to your life? Are the people in it paying attention to you? Are you moving through your days present and awake and actually here? Or are you somewhere else, phone in hand, walking past gardens you have never truly seen? The stone appeared when you were not looking. It disappeared when you were. That is not a supernatural fact. That is a human one. The lives that end quietly, the ones that slip away in the corners of ordinary days, are almost always the ones that nobody was fully paying attention to. Not because nobody cared, because everyone was busy, because the garden was just a garden you walked past, because the person beside you was just the person beside you, familiar enough to become invisible. Zoe texted you still here every night for 5 weeks. You texted back still here. That exchange, small, daily, completely unglamorous, is the most powerful thing in this story. Not the stone, not the archive, not the date that disappeared. Still here, still here. Look at the people you love. Look at them the way you looked at the garden on the day you finally looked, completely, fully, with the whole of your attention, and then tell them still here. every day, without fail, because that is the only date that matters. Drop in the comments, when did you last truly look at someone you love? Not glance, look. Because this comment section tonight is going to remind a lot of people to text someone still here, and that matters more than any view count. Subscribe to Borrowed Lives. Every week, a different life. Every week, a reason to pay attention. See you in the next Borrowed Life.